What's up everyone, welcome to the video. We're here breaking down the All-Star race for Sunday, May 21st, and we're going night racing in North Wilkesboro for the first time since 1996 when Jeff Gordon took home the checkered flag. And just for reference, I wasn't even alive in 1996, so it's been a long time since we have been here. So we can't really look at recent track data or anything like that, but I'll give you guys my little spiel on how we're going to break down this slate, what we're looking at, what data points are important to me. We did have practice on Friday evening, which was nice, showed us who had at least some speed. And then we're going to have heat races tonight, 2 of them, which should be able to tell us who's got the faster cars, which is going to be nice heading into Sunday. And then we also have the open race on Sunday evening around 5 p.m. Eastern, which is going to precede the main event, which we're going to have 3 drivers advance from the open race, 2 guys that finished top 2 in that, and then the fan vote winner as well. And I was planning on going live during the open race because that's probably the only time frame I'll have, since I'll have to update projections and whatnot afterwards. So hopefully we all can hang out and just watch the open race together, and we'll break down the slate as we go through it. But before I ramble on, if this is your first time here, what's up? My name is Pennell. I break down NASCAR DFS each and every single week on this channel. You'll also find me live on Sunday mornings, but like I just said, we're going live around 5 on Sunday. So come in, hang out, ask me all the questions you want. Should be a good time. If you do end up enjoying today's free content, the one thing I ask in return, if you can leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and feel free to leave a comment down below. Being nice and being mean, I don't really care either way, but I'd love to hear from you. And really quick here, let me start a bit. Got to mention the sponsors of the show, Prize Picks and Underdog, and promo code CPEN can get you a deposit match bonus up to $100. No strings attached, there's free money. Use that to your advantage, either using the link down below in the description or the pinned comment. And very fun to play on, I know. Paid to say that, but I do recommend it. And usually is pretty fun, unless it's Ross Chastain taking out all your Larson props that were very easily going to hit. As you can see, I was a victim of that last week, and I'm sure most of you were as well, but we move on. All right, so moving on to the strategy portion of this video, kind of tough just because we have not been to North Wilkesboro, and Jeff Gordon won that race. And if you haven't noticed, Jeff Gordon doesn't race anymore, and most of the guys that did race in 96, yeah, they're not here. So we have limited data to work with. Now, we did have practice on Friday, which was nice. Everybody at the same time, even the open drivers, which I wish that's how they did practice every week. I think the group thing is just so stupid because, you know, they're all going to be on the track during the race. Well, why not practice like that? Either way, we had practice to look at, which I don't think it's going to tell the whole story. But we do have heat races where we're set by the qualifying competition, which shout out to Ty Gibbs' crew. They got on the pole for the open race and won $100,000. Shout out to them. But the heat races are going to tell a pretty good story, I think, because some of these guys are going to have to move through the field. Guys like Kyle Larson, Tyler Reddick, they're starting not so much up front. So some guys are going to have cleaner, some are not. So the guys that are able to move through the pack, I think, will tell us that they got some pretty good cars. Obviously, the heat races aren't going to be super long, but you know, just something to look at, and that will set the order for the main event on Sunday. Then obviously the guys from the open will be starting in the back and will offer some decent place differential, which my assumption is that the open drivers that do make it are going to be Ty Gibbs and Josh Berry. And as for the fan vote, I have no idea. Maybe Corey LaJoie, but I'm not exactly sure. But I do hope Ty Gibbs wins the open race because I have a bet on him to win it at plus 330. Love the lap times I saw him practice, and with him on the pole, I feel pretty solid about it. But as far as roster construction for this track is concerned and what kind of tracks we're looking at to grab data from, well, roster construction, we have 200 laps, which, you know, 70% of that's going to be the Dominator points we have available to us. So it's not like a ton. It's less than an intermediate, and obviously way less than a short track. So, I mean, Dominators aren't super important. You're going to want the main Dom, obviously, assuming they don't wreck out. But I'm kind of viewing this as a finishing position race because I don't think there's going to be that much passing. Maybe some guys that just are excellent at tire conservation, they don't do well in the heat race. But at the same time, if they don't do well in the heat race, they probably just aren't going to be fast either way. So I think a lot of the fast cars are going to be up front, so I'll probably just be stacking the guys up there, hoping they trade around fast laps, some lap lead points, and obviously they'll finish well, because I just don't think there's going to be enough time or really just enough track really to pass too much anyway. So that's kind of my assumption. I'll be just targeting drivers that showed me speed on practice Friday, showed me speed in the heat races, and they'll probably be the ones that are starting up front. Now, another way to look at that is that this is an all-star race expedition, so it's not a points-paying race. So maybe these guys just start wrecking each other and then the place differential comes into play. So that's another way to look at it. Maybe build lineups going separate ways. But I mean, my assumption is if this is not a complete wreck fest, the guys up front will probably be the best place. Now, there might be a couple outliers where maybe they just had an issue in a heat race or something like that. But we'll talk about that after I actually watch the heat races because I'm recording this part beforehand. And as far as similar tracks are concerned, I'm looking at Richmond the most because this is a short flat track, 5/8 of a mile, And it's got a very abrasive surface, and Richmond does as well. So it's going to eat up the tires. We saw like a second of fall off after, what was it, like 15-ish laps, looking at some of the lap-by-lap data. So yeah, guys that are good at conserving tires, guys that are good at Richmond, I think will be very important. Maybe you can throw in Martinsville as well, and just really all the short flat tracks in general. But I do think for similar tracks that Richmond is going to be your best comp. And just throwing this out there, but I do think some of the dirt guys may have a bit of an advantage as well. And finally, moving on to the driver by driver breakdown portion, here I do have to mention one thing first, and that's if you want to join the best NASCAR DFS community out there, self-acclaimed obviously, but hopefully some people could back me up on that. We got a couple hundred people. We'll be more than happy to have you. Access to the entire NASCAR model I post each and every single week. Projections for all sites, DraftKings, FanDuel, Prize Picks, my own optimizer, which you guys can use. Ownership projections, sim scores, my betting sheet and betting model. Not just opinions, it's just straight numbers. And we try to find the best leverage for my stuff compared to the markets, which has been pretty solid so far this year. If you're gonna come in, check it out, I'd be more than happy to have you. And compared to most people in the industry, it is fairly priced for everything you get. Okay, so the heat races just ended, and I'll tell you right now, I'm even more confused than I was beforehand. I thought it was going to be a great practice session to see who's fast, who can move through the field and whatnot. Well, we didn't really get any usable data because first off, it was kind of raining, so we had wet tires, and we're not going to be running wet tires tomorrow. So I feel like everything we saw was pretty irrelevant. Although the one thing I will say that was something that we should probably keep in our minds is that track position is extremely important. These guys cannot pass whatsoever. There was a couple guys that can move after a little bit, but for the most part, you were stuck where you started. We saw the guys that started first in each heat race, dominated, Daniel Suarez, Chris Buescher, and passing was just pretty much impossible. So like I said earlier, I think I said we're track position pretty important and all the fast guys are going to be up front. Well, I'm not really sure all the fast guys are going to be up front, but I'm not sure how easy it's going to be to pass. Now, it was just heat races, so I don't think anyone want to really destroy their car and move people, and guys are going to be way more aggressive. And there's only like 10 cars on the track anyway, so having just a little bit over 20 cars on the field should at least stack them up a bit, and once they hit lap traffic, guys can make some moves and things like that. So the racing should be better from what we saw from the heats, but those heats were brutal, and like I said, track position should be pretty important. And as you can see, a lot of these cheaper drivers are the ones starting up front, and some of these really good drivers do have to work their way through the field a little bit. So it should be interesting. We'll see how it goes, but we'll talk to it as best as we can. But I'll tell you right now, very limited data, and I was looking forward to the heat races, and unfortunately, none of that really mattered too much. So let's start up top here with the man, Kyle Larson, the most expensive driver on both sides, 10-1 on DraftKings, 13-5 over on FanDuel. He's starting at 16th. Unfortunately, I bet him to win when the odds open up at plus 700. He dropped to plus 1,000. And these odds are pre-heat races like they just ended. It's probably going to get even worse. So I do not feel good about that bet. I figured Kyle Larson, he's been so fast at the short tracks this year, great at tire wear. I thought it set up perfect for him. Unfortunately, the weekend has not went his way so far. He won at North Wilkesboro in the truck race, though. It was absolutely incredible. We'll see how much that actually translates to the race, but he's going to have his work cut out from him here starting in the back of the pack in 16th. But if anyone can do it, I do think it's Kyle Larson. Wasn't super impressive in practice, but as good as Larson's been this year, I don't really have any concerns. If you're looking at green flag speed, I mean, he has been extremely fast. And if we're looking at the two Richmond races from last year and the Richmond race from this season, that's the recent track history we're looking at. And then we're looking at short flat tracks in general and obviously overall speed this year. Hard to beat Kyle Larson. He's just been incredibly good. So if you're going to roster one of these drivers that's highly priced, which you can probably build whatever lineup you want this week as soft as pricing is, Larson would be someone I'm willing to get to. Yes, I know passing will be tough, but Kyle Larson's good at conserving his tires. This is a 200 lap race. I still think he can work his way close to the front. I'm not saying he's going to win, but I think he should at least contend. Kevin Harvick, $9,900, 12.5 over on FanDuel. He's starting pretty much the same spot as Kyle Larson. You could view these guys as very similar plays. He was horrid during the heat race, but you have to keep in mind, Harvick, he's an old man. They don't like driving in the rain, and he never has. And yeah, when I saw that they're going to go wet tires for the heat one, I was like, well, Kevin Harvick is dead. And unfortunately, I bet him to win earlier in the week as well. Now, much lighter than normal because I just wanted to have some fun for the All-Star race. He opened up at like plus 1,000, plus 950, well, plus 1,200 before this. And then after that effort and heat race, I'm assuming it's going to get even worse. So good job to me. I think I got some of the worst absolute numbers ever on a couple of these top dogs. But my theory heading into the weekend was Well, he's great at high tire wear tracks, which is definitely what we're going to see at North Wilkesboro. He's amazing at Richmond, which I think is the best comparable track to North Wilkesboro. He's in the 29 car. It's his last All-Star race. I thought it made all the sense in the world, so I was just buying into the narrative. And green flag speed-wise, he checks all the boxes. Unfortunately, again, the weekend has not really gone his way, and the wet tires definitely did not help him. But if you're looking at the Richmond races recently, past 3 races, I mean, average finish of 2.7, which is incredible. 3 top 5s, overall really good numbers, and we know how good he is at short flat tracks. So I'm hoping that was just the case of he had a bad pit stop for his starting spot in the heat race, and just wet conditions kind of screwed his day up. So let's just hope that's what the case was, because I'm willing to play some Kevin Harvick here below 10K. I think you have to get exposure because, you know, if we have a nice long run for the last 100 laps of this race, because we're going to get the stage break at lap 100, he's able to put some good laps down. I mean, if he can just be a top 5 contender, starting in 15th, that's not bad. We'll take it. We don't need too many points from these guys considering such a small field, and there's not going to be too many dominator points to go around. Obviously, dominators are important. You need some guys up front that can pick up fast laps and lap sled, but we can easily do that and mix and match with some of these more expensive drivers, because as you can see, the front row consists of drivers that are in the mid 6K range, so lineups are very flexible for Sunday. Then Joey Logano, $9,700 on DraftKings. He is starting in 3rd. Track position is going to be the only reason I would want to play him. Obviously, he is good at short flat tracks, and it seems like every single time we go to a new venue, he happens to win. He did it at Bristol Dirt. He did it at the LA Coliseum, so maybe we'll just keep that going. And I know he's starting 3rd, and he looked good in the heat race on paper, but he was not that fast. He was just playing defense. He used up all his stuff to try to get to Suarez, and he was basically a roadblock for Chase Briscoe and Christopher Bell for a long time. And I think if this was the actual race, he would have got punted by one of those at some point. They'd probably just don't want to kill Joey or themselves just for a couple spots in qualifying. But I mean, I'll play some Joey just because of where he's starting, but to be honest, he probably should have got past. If this was a real race, I do think those guys would have been by him at some point. And if we're looking at practice, which we're not on wet tires, so at least it's a decent data point, he wasn't that great. He was kind of just a mid-teens car, which, especially at a week like this, that's not that great considering there's only going to be like 23 cars in the field, or 24, whatever it is. Christopher Bell, $9,500. He's starting in 7th. Had a pretty strong car in practice. We know he's great at short tracks. And he did not look bad in the heat once they got that adjustment. It sounded like he was going to have a tire go down, but they came in, fixed that, and definitely had some speed. Although keep in mind, we were on wet tires, so none of this really matters. So I'm not really sure how much I should even reference the heat races. But I love Bell at short flats, so I think you have to have some interest there, starting inside the top 10. And decent, probably more than decent, long run car in practice. Martin Truex Jr., $9,300. He's starting in 12th. Had a good short run in practice, definitely fell off a bit. Doesn't really have the track position to work with. Didn't impress me too much in the heats. He's just one of those guys where I feel like he kind of finishes somewhat close to where he's starting. I can't really see him making too many moves. You can't really fade anybody on this slate. I'm thinking from like a 20 max, 150 max approach. Like, I'm not really sure there's anybody that I'm just like, yuck, I don't think I'll play them at all. Maybe once we start going down the list here, maybe a couple guys I could see probably I'm not playing. But I mean, Truex, I think I'd rather play Bell personally. I think I'd rather play Byron. So we'll see what the optimizer gives me, but I don't really have a strong stance on Truex. William Byron, though, I do like, $9,100, 13K over on FanDuel. He's a much easier get over on DK. FanDuel did price him up quite a bit, but he's starting in 6th. He's one guy I do feel good about that I got a bet in early on, because he was at plus 1,000 in a lot of places, plus 850, plus 900. Well, he dropped to plus 600 after qualifying. When I say qualifying, I mean the pit stop challenge. But had a decent heat race, starting in 6th, so he's close to the front. And obviously, he's been extremely fast everywhere so far this year. He had the best 10-lap run in practice. Did fall off a bit after that, but green flag speed checks out. And at Richmond earlier in the year, he dominated that race. I believe that was the one where he got wrecked at the end, so the finish isn't going to look as good as it should. I believe that was William Byron. Let me check the finishes. So yeah, we have an average finish of 12.7 here, but does have the most laps led at Richmond over the past 3 races. And like I said, this should be somewhat similar to Richmond. He was pretty fast in the truck race. Didn't obviously get the win. Kyle Larson just had a master class there. But I mean, William Byron got decent track position, pretty easy to fit. He's definitely someone I'm looking to roster. Should be up front pretty much all day. I'm not saying he's going to lead the laps all day, but should be trading off fast laps and at least have an opportunity to get up front, which is what you're going to need. Denny Hamlin, $8,800. He's starting in 9th. Obviously very good at Richmond. Did not have a bad car in practice whatsoever. Pretty much top 5 across the board. Pretty good in the long run. So $800. I mean, you can kind of view him as a similar play as Byron, but just with a little bit more place differential upside. So I'm perfectly fine with Denny, and obviously great at short flat tracks. Ross Chastain, $8,600. He's starting in 18th, so it's going to be fun seeing Ross Chastain move through the field in a non-points playing race. I mean, he could definitely cause some damage to a lot of people if he happens to go bulldozer mode, which is something that he has no problem doing. And rest in peace to our Kyle Larson plays last weekend. That was very unfortunate. But Ross, I don't know. It's going to be tough to pass. So starting in 18th, I mean, if a guy like Byron can get up front and dominate, he'll definitely be a much better play than Ross, even if he finishes 6th. So it's just something to keep in mind. I don't think I want to chase place differential too much. I'll tell you right now, though, projection systems are going to love Ross. They're going to project them probably close to the top 5. And obviously at $8,600, the place differential is there. And you can build pretty much whatever you want. So you can still get lap leaders in with Ross quite easily. Like if you want to stack up Suarez and Buescher on the front row, you can easily get in Larson and Ross at the same time. So I don't really think you're too constricted in your lineups. And long run speed wasn't bad for him at practice. And during the heat race, his fall off, similar to Kyle Larson, they were probably the best in the field before they had issues at the end where they went to the back. So I'll get on board with Ross, but the ownership will probably be pretty high. Just know there are some pivots to be had. Now, Josh Berry, I have some of these guys that are not actually locked in yet. I just took the 3 biggest favorites to advance and I put them in here, but these are TBT. So that'd be Josh Berry, Ty Gibbs, Ryan Preece. These are my placeholders as of right now. So I don't really want to break these guys down too much, but if Josh Berry makes it, I mean, he'll have place differential and a good ride, but probably won't be able to move too much unless there's some carnage. So keep that in mind. Chase Elliott, $8,300. He's starting in 13th. Price is pretty cheap for Chase Elliott. Didn't really impress you in practice too much. I mean, not even a top 20 car overall. Now, I don't think he's going to be that bad during the race, and unless he's getting passed by the open guys. And if that's the case, we have some bigger issues. But Elliott's kind of in that Truex range, just a lot cheaper, but just whatever the optimizer gives me, I'll take on Chase. I don't have a strong stance on him. We know he's good at short tracks, though, and he actually looked pretty good in his heat early on, but obviously faded back. Ty Gibbs, I have a bet on him to win the heat race, which I feel pretty good about at plus 330. Not the heat race, the open race. He's starting on the pole, had the best pit stop. They won 100K. So feeling good about Gibbs. If he does make the race, he did put down some pretty good lap times. As you can see, top 10 across the board in the long run. So even though he won't have the track position, if you're just looking for a guy that can gain some spots, he's fine, but it's not like you're getting him cheap. So, but I do think Ty Gibbs would definitely be someone to consider. Kyle Busch, $7,100. He has not had speed whatsoever at the short flat tracks this year, and kind of showed that in practice where he was 29th in the 10 lap, 26th in the 15, 20th in the 10. And if you're looking at Richmond recently, for Kyle Busch, hasn't been amazing. I mean, 2 top 10s, but he's just not leading laps. And if you're looking at these short flat tracks, I believe just this year is what we're going to be looking at. Kyle Busch has an average finish of 14.3, running position of 16.9, and just 1 top 10 finish, and obviously nothing in the Dominator department. So not really that huge on Kyle Busch. He's cheap, so he's going to have ownership, but we'll see how aggressive he's going to be. Now, he was fast at the Clash, but I am concerned about the speed we've seen from Kyle Busch this weekend and overall this year at these track types. Ryan Preece, another guy, I don't know if he's going to make it yet, so I don't want to put too much analysis on him, but I do think this is a decent track type for him, so if he does make it, he could be an option for place differential. But at the same time, I mean, Tyler Reddick's even cheaper than Ryan Preece, so I feel like I'd just rather go with Tyler Reddick, who, another guy, now I'm talking small bets compared to normal. I just wanted some action this week. We're talking like 3-ish units total on everything. But I did put a little bit of a bet on Reddick after I saw practice. I was like, dang, his lap times look really good in the long run, which is what you're going to need. But man, he sucked it up in the heat race. He sucked it up in the pit challenge. I believe they were one of the guys that had a penalty. So he's starting like in the very back. So that's very unfortunate. I bet him at plus 2,000. He went to 3,500. Now after this heat race, it's probably going to be worse. I think I saw him at 5,000 in one place. So not feeling good about the Reddick bet. I don't think he's got a chance to win. But long run speed, when they were actually doing practice yesterday and not the heat races or the pit crew challenge, he was fast. So I'm hoping he can move through the field a little bit. But from what I saw so far, it doesn't look like passing is going to be that easy. But I do imagine he'll have some pretty high ownership. But if you're looking for a pivot option, Ryan Blaney at $7,400. He actually looked pretty good in his heat race. Keep in mind, wet tires, so not really that relevant. But it was nice to at least see some speed there, and he was passing some guys before he fell back a little bit at the end. And he had one of the best cars in practice in the long run. Didn't fire off that good, but third in the 15, and then first in the 20, 25, and 30 lap runs. And we know Blaney is good at the short flat tracks, so I don't mind him in tournaments. I think he might go a little bit overlooked. Same can be said for Brad Keselowski here at $7,100. He's starting in 8th, and I think he's a pretty similar play. Pretty good at the higher tire wear tracks, good at short tracks. So I think Keselowski's a pretty decent play. And obviously, Chris Buescher had a ton of speed, and Keselowski was passing some people in his heat race. Bubba Wallace, $6,800. He's starting in 10th. Kind of a similar play to all these guys we just talked about, Blaney, Keselowski. So I would just throw in that same group there and to show some decent speed in practice. So I'm not anti-Bubba, but he's just one of those guys where whatever the optimizer gives me, I guess I'll take it. Don't really have a strong stance starting in the very middle of the pack. Chase Briscoe's interesting, starting in 5th. Just one of those guys that performs pretty well at the shorter flat tracks. And I do think he was better than Joey Logano in that heat race, but we know Logano's excellent at blocking. So he was just going to be a roadblock for them until the end so he could have that nice starting position of 3rd to start. But I don't think Briscoe's a bad term of play. He's just one of those guys where if no one can pass and he just hangs in the top 8 all day, he'll probably pick up some fast laps along the way. And if he finishes up there, that's not bad at $6,800. Then we have Daniel Suarez, Chris Buescher, our very cheap front row here. Suarez then showed a ton of speed in practice, and obviously he did all of his damage on wet tires, so we'll see how he looks on slicks. And he even said after the heat race where he didn't learn anything for Sunday, but he was still smiling. But track position is going to be huge, and if he can lead a majority of stage 1, I mean, that's a lot of points at $6,600. So put him and Chris Buescher as basically same place here, although Buescher had a ton of speed in practice, which I know we saw how they did in wet tires. They started off on slicks for the heat too. Buescher had speed on slicks, definitely a lot faster than Suarez here. And this was one of the only bets I feel good about, him and William Byron. I got in on Buescher at plus 40 to 1. And now with him looking good in practice, good in the pit crew challenge, and obviously amazing in his heat race, that might be one of the only good bets I've made so far this weekend, him and William Byron. So Buescher, Suarez, same place here. I don't mind having exposure to either. They just pick up fast laps and lap led points early on and contend for top 6 finishes. I mean, that's not bad at all at their price points. Austin Dillon, he's just probably one of the few guys I don't want to play up here. Just RCR has not had speed at the shorter flat tracks this year, and as you can see, we're talking like borderline top 20 speed here. Got better in the long run, but less guys did run that. So I mean, he'll be less owned than Buescher and Suarez, but I do think I would prefer those two over Austin Dillon. And Ricky Stenhouse here, Eric Jones, Austin Cindric, they have place differential, but I'm probably just going to avoid these guys. Like, if it came down to it, yes, I would play Austin Dillon over guys like Stenhouse, Eric Jones, just because I think they're going to be stuck there all race. They're going to go lap down early on, and at least Austin Dillon's got a chance to stay in the lead lap for longer if there is caution. So after Dillon, I just don't really have any interest in any of these guys, and I do think the open drivers will probably pass them anyway. Like, if it's Ty Gibbs, I imagine he'll pass them. Josh Berry should be able to pass them. And if I don't know who's going to win the fan vote, but I just took the 3 highest odds guys, and I would probably bet all these guys over Jones, Cindric, and Ricky Stenhouse for sure. But with that being said, that's all I got for you guys this week. So I hope you did enjoy, and if you did, make sure you leave a like down below. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet done so. I'll be live tomorrow during the heat races, not the heat races, the open race. So come in, hang out, we can watch it together, and we'll break down the site and I'll answer any question you guys got. Check out the Patreon if you want some extra content, and don't forget promo code CPEN over on Prize Picks and Underdog. But I'll stop rambling. I wish you all the best of luck, and I'll see you all next time.